welcome back to ATA. It's me, Ariana Young.
Hi, I'm Trisanya Chapman.
And I am Mariana Strada.
Last week we did a 30-second recap on the book Hold Tight, Don't Let Go. If you haven't seen that one yet, go see it before listening to this podcast so you are up to date with this week's. So today's podcast is an author interview. I'm here with two very special guests, Miss Singer and Laura Wagner.
Hi, I'm Miss Singer.
Hi.
Conklin is over there, my counterpart.
I'm over here. Hello.
Yeah.
Do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure.
Thanks.
My name's Laura Wagner. I am a lot of things. I'm a writer. I'm an anthropologist by training. I'm the author of Hold Tight, Don't Let Go, which is a young adult novel that I wrote about the 2010 earthquake in Haiti and the aftermath. I currently live in Durham, North Carolina, where I am the archivist for a project that is creating an online digital trilingual, so in English, Haitian, Creole, and French, archive of Haiti's first independent radio station. So that's my day job. Yeah, looking forward to talking to you guys today.
Great, thank you.
So you would, or Miss Conklin would, because
Yeah, so I'm Miss Singer again. We're so thankful that you're here to answer a few questions. I'm gonna let the girls start, and then we actually have a few questions for you too, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right, great.
Cool.
Thank you so much for your time. My first question is, what inspired you to write about the earthquake?
So it's sort of a complicated question. As I mentioned to you in our Twitter messages, I was in Haiti at the time of the earthquake. And I was in a house that collapsed, and I was hurt, and I was part of a medical evacuation. And while I was in the hospital in Miami, a professor of mine wrote to me and said that someone at Salon, which is sort of an online magazine, would be interested in my writing something about the earthquake and what happened. And at the time, and this was just like, a couple days after the earthquake, at the time, a lot of, sort of the news that I was seeing on TV and CNN and stuff like that, I didn't feel like they were really representing what had happened very well. They were talking about looting and violence, and I didn't see anything like that. And I thought it was lazy. I thought it was racist that going to go to chaos and anarchy in a country that is predominantly Black and predominantly poor. So I just tried to write something different, which was just what I lived through, which included the story of the woman who lived and worked as the cook in the house that I lived in, who died in the earthquake, and also the story of the men who rescued me and dug me out. And the two sort of big points of that essay were like everyday life exists in Haiti. Haitian people they like go to school and cook food and flirt and, tell jokes and watch TV and do all the things that like people do. And also that when a disaster happens, people are more decent than selfish. And that the instinct is to save people rather than, like to steal a DVD player, because why would you even do that? And so after I wrote that piece, and I think at the time we didn't even really talk about things going viral yet, but it got a lot of traction, I think in part because I was telling a story that wasn't the same kind of story that other people were telling about the earthquake. And so because of that, an editor at Abrams wrote to me and out of the blue, and she said, do you write fiction? Would you be interested in writing a young adult novel about Haiti? And I said, okay. I said I'd give it a try. And I actually followed up with her a few months later because at the time that she wrote, like I had a pretty bad injury to my left arm. And so I couldn't type, or I could only type with one hand, and it took me a long time. And I had a bunch of other stuff to figure out. And so I wrote back to her that summer and I said, okay, let's try this. And so I did it. That's kind of the story.
What is it? Would you ever like go back to Haiti and?
Oh yeah, I lived there so I went back about 3 months after the earthquake, and I was there more or less consistently until the end of 2012. And I still go back several times a year. You know, right now it's a little bit harder just because I have sort of a salaried job that keeps me where I am, but also because that work has to do with Haiti. I go back a couple times a year. So I was actually just there earlier this month. Yeah.
Okay.
I go, and I have a lot of people to visit. So it's partly work, and it's partly, you know, personal, seeing my friends and stuff like that.
So I saw that you went to school in North Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
UNC.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you grew up too?
No, I'm from California originally. Yeah.
Okay. So what had originally brought you to Haiti for those 3 years to begin with?
I was a graduate student in anthropology, and I was doing a research project at the time on household workers, so people who live and work in other people's houses. Generally, in the research I was doing, it was adults, because there is a system of unpaid child servitude in Haiti that a lot of people call modern slavery. And that's not what I was writing about, although some of the people that I was talking to or planned to talk to had grown up that way and then became, you know, they hit 18 and they sort of became adults, and generally were paid, but not very much. So I was interested in the sort of intimate patronage relationships, how there could at once be, you know, exploitation and mistreatment, but also that this was happening in a household in a really kind of, you know, intimate space. And so that's what I was interested in, and what my research was coming together around was sort of human rights and household workers before the earthquake. And once the earthquake happened, that really changed everything. But at the same time, I was still interested in that question, you know, what happens to a household when the house is gone? What happens to those kinds of unequal relationships, you know, when a crisis like this happens? So that was no longer sort of the center of my research, but it was part of it. And a lot of the people that I interviewed and talked to had at one point in their lives been household workers. And that's partly because I ended up writing a lot about Melise, the woman who died in the house that I was in, and her family, and other people who had migrated from the countryside to Port-au-Prince to work in other people's houses, and what kinds of effects the earthquake had on family that wasn't in Port-au-Prince, people who weren't directly hit by the earthquake, but whose you know, families and economic situation were affected by the earthquake. And so that's part of the story that I ended up telling in a kind of different way in Hold Tight, Don't Let Go, because that was the question that I was thinking about all the time anyway.
So that's cool. So you were able to use your research and bring it to life in the fiction.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I'm a terribly imaginative writer. I think I'm a pretty good observer. And, you know, I'm totally in awe of people who can like create a world or something like that, because I don't think I can do that. I think I'm pretty good at sort of, you know, I have a good eye for detail, but I could never just sort of create something out of my own head that way.
Do you have any side effects or flashbacks after the earthquake?
Flashbacks, no. Like I don't feel like I'm there or something again. I think everybody who was there has this sort of, I think the technical term is something like an exaggerated startle reflex or something like that, which is to say if I think I feel an earthquake or I feel something shaking, I like bolt out the door. But so does like everybody in Port-au-Prince. To the point that like I did it once in Durham and everyone was like, what's wrong with you? If you do that in Haiti, everybody laughs because everybody does it sometimes. And I think that's one way that people kind of cope with it. So I don't think that that's necessarily like pathological. Like it doesn't get in the way of my life, but it is this sort of reminder. It's just, you know, if I'm in a building, I'm looking for the exits and sort of trying to figure out like how quickly could I get out of this building if something happened. So that kind of thing. My physical injuries are basically all better. You know, like my left hand is a little weird in ways that probably only I would notice, but it doesn't really get in the way of things. So.
Why have Nadine come back to Haiti?
Why?
At the end, it seemed like Nadine came back from Miami.
Yeah, I don't think she does. So we're sort of assuming that people like know the story at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe my regret about the book, or the thing that I think could have been clearer. In earlier versions and earlier drafts, I think it was clearer that Magdali was writing stories about her life. Or about the things that she was seeing. So there were points where she was sort of telling, you know, her narrative and what was actually happening. And then there were these departures where she was sort of imagining something. And that's what the end is supposed to be. So in the second to last chapter, you know, sort of before the, you know, the epilogue, she says, you know, I just want something like, I just want the chance to write my own story or to tell my own story, or I forget exactly what it is. And so the last section to me was her imagining. It was her trying to envision a better future than the one that she knew. And in a lot of ways, I mean, it's totally impossible what she's imagining because it's so idealistic. So I don't think it's impossible that Nadine could come back to Haiti. Like that could happen. But I think it's a lot of wishful thinking on Magdali's part. And I wanted a sad ending. It's actually a really bittersweet ending, because it shows at once that she still has this, you know, ability to hope, but in some ways her hopes are unreasonable and they're sort of so perfect that they're impossible. In which not only does her cousin come back and everything is fixed for her, but like the country is fixed. And so some people are like, oh, like the ending was too happy, you know, it was impossible. And I'm like, yeah, I know, like that was the point. So anyway, I don't know if Nadine comes back, but I think that Magdali really wants Nadine to come back, even with the fact that she's not there. And she started figuring out ways to kinds of relationships and rely on other.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of ATA. Again, I'm Ariana Young.
And I'm Trisanya Chapman.
And I'm Ariana Strada.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you so much. So Mrs. Conklin and I teach freshmen, and we have summer reading assignments, and your novel is one of the few novels that we offer to freshmen, to incoming freshmen to read.
That's cool.
A large population in our high school that have read your novel, and it's, you know, definitely a huge fan favorite, and it's one of our favorites. And we actually have a decent Haitian population in our school, so I think that is another.
Hold on, you're kind of going in and out a little bit.
Yeah, it's
Can you hear us
Can
now?
you hear us now?
Yeah, so I heard it was on the freshman reading list. A lot of people read it, and you have a decent number of Haitian students at your school. I think that's
Yep,
what I got.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's definitely an awesome, you know, it's an awesome way for them to, you know, feel like there's a connection to, you know, something that tells a story that feels real to them.
And something that a lot of them were actually there as well to experience. So a lot of them are new to this country. So it adds a very real factor, and it, you know, not not every student can connect to every novel, and it lends a very real connection for a lot of.
Oh, thank you. Did they feel like I got it right? I mean, did they?
I mean,
yeah, I've never spoken to a student who's actually read the book and lived through it, but that would be an interesting conversation to have. I'd like to see that.
With the freshmen, they were young, so they're now, they were very, very young when it happened. So it's a very different experience for them. And they may not have been in, like you said, in Port-au-Prince. They could have been, anywhere. But this is like the coolest thing that we've been able to do. We are so appreciative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you to Mr. Rafter as always, because he's always, he's got all these great ideas and he's always trying to set us up with, ways to kind of expand the learning. So this is awesome.
And
this is really cool.
Our principal, Mrs. Kazuba,
our principal's here watching and listening.
Hi.
Yeah, this was so great. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for setting it up, Ariana.
She was our mastermind.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Laura. We appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.